After my family was destroyed and I became homeless. I hadn't had a full meal in ages. When Ethan Carter announced the termination of cooperation with the Wilson family, many businesses that followed trends quickly distanced themselves from us. During Ethan's siege of the Wilsons, those who had once smiled at us eagerly became Ethan's lackeys to curry favor with the Carters and gain a share of the spoils. My dad couldn't bear to watch the empire he'd built collapse and jumped from a high-rise. My mom, already bedridden, followed him soon after. After all assets were liquidated, I ended up on the streets. Finding a job based on my abilities shouldn't have been hard. But no one dared hire me with Ethan Carter publicly targeting the Wilsons. Eventually, I had to scavenge for recyclables to survive. But even that wasn't enough to satisfy Ethan's vengeance. He had men follow me, snatching the cardboard and bottles I'd struggled to collect. Once, when I fought to keep what little means of survival I had, they shoved me into the street. A speeding car knocked me down, and my head slammed into the curb. As blood blurred my vision, a dark figure knelt before me. "Does it hurt?" It was Ethan's voice. Somehow finding the strength, I grabbed his hand. Why? I needed to know before I died. We'd been childhood friends, and I'd helped him secure his position as head of the Carter family. Why destroy the Wilsons? He pried my skeletal hand off him, his voice almost nostalgic. "Remember Sophia? When you forced Sophia to leave, I wanted to ask why too. You made me lose the love of my life. This is what you and your family owe me and Sophia." Sophia? The name drew a blank. When Ethan saw my confusion, he angrily ground his foot into my hand. I curled up, too agonized to scream. "Recall now?" he snapped. "Sophia Moore. Just like this winter. My Sophia left alone and never came back." Sophia Moore. Ethan's former assistant. So this was his version of undying love, and he blamed it all on me. I wheezed. "Ethan Carter. You're a goddamn idiot." He kicked my head in response. As snow fell harder, a trail of red stained the white ground. "It's freezing out. Take an extra jacket." The phantom pain lingered as I shivered involuntarily. "See? You're cold," Mom fussed, draping a coat over me from the maid. I stared at my vibrant dad and gentle mom, afraid to blink lest this be a dream. We were en route to the Carter family's birthday gala for Mrs. Carter. The Wilsons and Carters had always been close. The Carters valued our small, drama-free family compared to their own complicated dynasty. Previously, they joked about wanting me as a granddaughter-in-law. In my past life, it was at this very gala that Mrs. Carter announced the family's plan to arrange a marriage. Now, I watched the bustling crowd. This wasn't even a milestone birthday, just an excuse to gather for the real event, our public engagement. A group of girls teased me, some with thinly veiled bitterness. "I thought the Carters were pushing for you and Ethan. Why is he doting on that assistant?" Following their gaze, I saw Ethan speaking intently to a petite woman, his eyes soft with unusual patience. How had I never noticed his favoritism towards Sophia Moore before? The Carters only invited family, close friends, and trusted partners to such events. Yet here was Ethan, bringing a low-level assistant to an occasion where everyone assumed we were as good as engaged. His overtly familiar behavior was a public humiliation. Ethan had just joined Carter Enterprises that year, under immense pressure from the board. Of course he'd fall for Sophia's gentle confidant act. In my past life, I'd later learned he'd already protested the arranged marriage to his family, but his wishes meant little next to family interests. Instead of confronting his family, he'd taken out his anger on me. "What a coward," a friend whispered. "Don't worry, no assistant can compare to you. Chloe. You and Ethan are childhood sweethearts." I shook my head, feigning indifference. Now that I saw through Ethan, he seemed like nothing but a pretty-faced fraud. Good riddance. Our stares must have caught his attention. Ethan turned, And the gossiping crowd fell silent. No one dared offend the Carters openly. He murmured something to Sophia before approaching. Chloe. He looked polished in his tailored suit. The epitome of sophistication. The whispers around us turned to flattering greetings. Though the Wilsons were newly minted elites, my parents' history gave us standing. Both orphans. They'd been sponsored by the Carters' charity. My dad, a former research titan turned tech CEO, and my mom, a renowned university professor, earned the Carters' respect despite our humble origins. Ethan and I had known each other since kindergarten. As kids, he'd run away to my house during rebellions. I'd bribed him with candy to forge my homework when I was lazy. Like everyone else, I'd never imagined our futures diverging. But today, at this family gala, he brought Sophia, a woman who carried herself nothing like the confident daughters of our social circle. She kept her head down, spoke in whispers, like a Dickensian ingenue afraid to breathe too loudly. When she saw Ethan approaching me, Sophia trailed awkwardly, eyes downcast. "Miss Wilson," she murmured timidly. If I hadn't lived this before, her trembling lashes and vulnerable act might have fooled me. We'd grown up together, but love couldn't be forced. Still, one should know priorities. Ethan was the Carter heir apparent, but he wasn't the only contender for power. To outmaneuver his cousins, he needed alliances. In my past life, I pitted Sophia and tried to reason with Ethan. This merger is crucial for both families. You can pursue love later. Once you're in charge, no one will dictate your marriage. But Sophia had turned my practical advice into a weapon. "I may not be your equal, Miss Wilson, but I'm not some mistress you can brush aside. Ethan and I love each other openly. How dare you suggest I hide?" Ethan had resented me ever since. Now, seeing them together, I stepped back sharply. The crowd froze, eyeing the three of us with curiosity. "Chloe?" Ethan's tone was tight as he registered my "don't touch me" stance. Sophia Moore widened her watery eyes, lip quivering as if on the verge of tears. So pathetically convincing. Had I done anything? She wanted to paint me as a bully abusing power? I regarded them with amused scrutiny. Sophia was a dedicated actress. Indeed. To sabotage Ethan's arranged marriage with me, she'd embedded herself in his life. Turns out, Sophia was the first love of Ethan's cousin, Derek Carter. To help her lover seize power, she'd willingly played the subservient assistant to Ethan. I'd stumbled upon them later, in a shadowy corner of an exclusive club, Sophia wrapped in Derek's arms, weeping dramatically. "I've sacrificed so much for you. You must never betray me. Ethan already resents the Wilsons because of me. When can I leave? I can't stand staying with Ethan while longing for you." Such masterful acting. Ethan genuinely believed someone loved him unconditionally, braving gossip for their pure relationship. Once, I'd asked why he cherished Sophia so deeply. He'd smiled softly. "Besides my mother, she's the only one who doesn't fawn over my status. My father has illegitimate children. My grandparents have too many grandchildren. Even you." He'd spared no thought for my feelings. "We're only close because we grew up together. Would you still care about me if I weren't a Carter?" I was baffled. If he weren't from the Carter family, we'd never have crossed paths. In our world, connections are defined by social circles. How else would we meet? With Sophia, it's different. She never tries to please me. It's like we've known each other forever. Comfortable and natural. You don't get it, Chloe. Losing her would haunt me for life. After the club incident, I'd protected his ego by not revealing the truth, only gently urging him to rethink Sophia. But Ethan was so naive. How could a stranger align with him so perfectly? As the Carter heir, countless women would flatter him. Sophia was no exception. My silence and scrutiny now embarrassed Ethan. "Chloe," he warned, voice low. Funny. I'd tolerated his antics before for the arranged marriage. But now? I owed him no patience. Before I could retort, Sophia stepped forward, feigning a bow of apology. Ethan stopped her. Chloe, don't go too far. This was the joy of knowing the whole truth, watching them unravel. Is ignoring people the Wilson family's idea of manners? Our argument drew stares. Sophia cowered behind Ethan, but triumph flickered in her eyes. I scoffed. And is this how the great Ethan Carter hosts guests? Treating invitees like servants? I'd hinted at Sophia's betrayal before, but he'd dismissed it as jealousy. Later, Sophia had fled to Europe during the fiercest inheritance battles, never to return. Everyone thought it was a forgotten chapter until Ethan, after seizing power, destroyed the Wilsons. They called him ungrateful. No one guessed a lowly assistant had driven his vengeance. My sudden defiance irritated Ethan. Before he could retort, a servant interrupted to announce the gala's start. I turned to join the crowd, leaving him fuming. Don't take the Carter's favor for granted, he hissed. I love Sophia. That engagement talk was just old people's chatter. So he'd known about the announcement today and brought Sophia to humiliate me. In my past life, I'd been too meek to see his assistant was a statement, a dismissal. Mrs. Carter adored me. Seeing me, she clasped my hand and beamed at the crowd. I've never had a granddaughter, but Chloe is the daughter of my heart. Having her as my granddaughter-in-law would complete my life. Glancing at the tense Ethan, I smiled sweetly. I'd rather be your granddaughter, Mrs. Carter. The room froze. Ethan stared, first relieved, then stunned, as if my refusal were unthinkable. News of the Carter Gala spread fast. Ethan's public display with Sophia became gossip fodder. Some criticized my impulse, claiming I should have handled the assistant discreetly. But the whispers about Ethan's affair put both families in the spotlight. My public rejection of the engagement only fueled the drama. The Carters' expressions that night were priceless. Rumor had it Mr. Carter had given Ethan a harsh family reprimand after the crowd left. With Patriarch Carter still in charge and eyeing a direct handover to grandchildren, Ethan's self-sabotage had thrown the inheritance race wide open. My parents were furious. How could you reject the match in public? If you disliked him, talk to us first. What will society think? Embarrassing yourself and us in front of elders, how will you find a good match now? Men with mistresses were charismatic, women showing displeasure were jealous or unladylike. I stared defiantly at my dad. Usually composed, he glared back. My mom, a university professor, took my side. Ethan acted inappropriately. Chloe was right to refuse. Dad sighed, glancing at Mom. I don't oppose the rejection, but doing it publicly. Tomorrow, you'll apologize to the Carters with me. I stiffened, then relented at apologize to the elders. The Carters had always treated me like family, especially after sponsoring my parents. My reincarnation-fueled impulsiveness had overshadowed that. Even Mom agreed once she realized the stakes. The next day, we visited the Carters with gifts, only to find them entertaining a guest, a lean, elegant man in wire-rimmed glasses. Strikingly handsome. He met my gaze as we entered. Meet my grandson Caleb Reed, Patriarch Carter boomed, cheerful as ever. Was supposed to introduce him at the gala, but his flight was delayed. Finally made it to see his old granddad, Caleb Reed. I'd heard of him. The Carters' only daughter, Amelia Carter, had been their darling until she'd eloped to Hong Kong with a commoner, defying the family. Years of estrangement followed. Caleb's sudden return reeked of inheritance politics. With the Carters' bias toward Amelia, Caleb might just upset the apple cart. If the goal was a strategic marriage, why not choose someone more reliable? I was right. The Carters had plans too. Claiming they needed to discuss business, the elders sent Caleb and me to tour the garden. We exchanged a knowing look at the transparent excuse, smart people communicate without words. We strolled off together amiably. In my past life, I'd barely met him, only glimpsing him at my ill-fated engagement party with Ethan. After that, Caleb had returned to Hong Kong. The next I heard of him was after the Wilson collapse, apparently. The retired heir had reappeared to seize power. If only he'd acted sooner. A strategic partner with ambition and wit is invaluable. With shared goals, we forged an alliance swiftly. Meanwhile, Ethan was still lost in his romantic drama with Sophia. He assumed my closeness to Caleb was petty jealousy. At the peak of the inheritance battle, he'd vanished to amusement parks with Sophia, heedless of mockery about prioritizing love over legacy. Perhaps the media's Carter Prince hype had convinced him he was untouchable. Ethan had been a campus celebrity for his looks. So when paparazzi snapped photos of their Cinderella date, the story went viral. Blogs praised their soul-deep love beyond status. Love isn't about bloodlines, it's about connection. Chase true love. Ethan. What's wealth without freedom to choose your partner? Screw arranged marriages. Support the prince and his Cinderella. Their fans' enthusiasm only entrenched their delusion. I could barely contain my laughter. Ethan was so easily manipulated. A few whispers, and he'd charge headfirst into self-destruction. Was this your doing? Caleb asked over lunch, now deep in Carter Enterprises' inner circle. I slid him a slice of watermelon with a grin. Me? A schemer? Please. Ethan has more enemies than I can count, I'm just one of many. I arched a brow. Besides, you have more motive than anyone. Caleb merely smiled. Ever the polished gentleman. His return had declared war on the other Carter heirs. Unlike the pretend brotherly love of Ethan's cousins, Caleb owed the Carters no loyalty, he was here to win. Ethan's public romance infuriated his parents. To my surprise, Mrs. Carter, usually disdainful of me, begged me to reclaim Ethan. Her smile was strained, a mix of pride and desperation. The Carters had 4 children, Ethan's father, the eldest, Caleb's mother, the estranged daughter, and 2 younger sons. As the heir apparent, Ethan had long irritated his uncle's families. Now, his aunts were spreading tales of his foolishness at every social event. I declined reuniting with Ethan but agreed to reason with him, though we both knew it was hopeless. Why would he listen to me when he ignored his own parents? Ethan smirked when I visited, assuming I'd come to beg. Don't cling to that old engagement talk. I'll never give up Sophia. Sophia batted teary eyes at him, then shot me a triumphant glance when he wasn't looking. Done with the soap opera? I interrupted. I'm not here to reconcile. Your mother asked me to talk sense into you, consider it a favor. Don't flatter yourself. Ethan's face paled. Chloe Wilson. I delivered the message. Goodbye. To recover from that ordeal, I met Caleb for dinner. Ethan's a lovesick fool. He'll self-destruct without us lifting a finger. Caleb wore a tailored suit today, adding an air of sophisticated danger. Sightseeing among normal people? I teased. He merely smiled. Ethan's antics had alienated Carter executives. Mr. Carter had even considered legitimizing his illegitimate son to save face, sparking a marital crisis. Unfazed, Ethan doubled down on his love above all mantra. Then, the bombshell, the Wilsons announced a new engagement with Caleb Reed. Overnight, Caleb became headline news, the long-lost grandson, heir to the Carters' favorite daughter. The elders were thrilled, only Ethan was blindsided. He stormed into my office, livid. You're serious about this? Dead serious. I met his gaze coolly. Let him feel the weight of losing the Wilson alliance, the same alliance he'd always taken for granted. Online trolls called us soulless pawns, praising Ethan and Sophia as love's martyrs. I scoffed at Caleb, love without money is just Hunger Games. He poured tea with unshakable calm. Public opinion is noise. Our partnership is about results, not theater. How did he stay so unflappable? While I seethed at hate comments, he remained above the fray, like a deity indifferent to moral squabbles. Ethan warned Caleb was a snake, but I asked the real question over drinks: you won't stab me in the back once you're in power? Caleb paused, then smiled faintly. When I take Carter Enterprises, you'll run it alongside me. Ethan spoke with casual confidence, as if the empire were already his to divide. Ambitious men did have a certain charm. True to form, Ethan attended Carter Enterprises' new product launch with Sophia, turning the event into their personal stage. Cameras ignored the prototypes, focusing instead on their romantic gestures. The news cycle flooded with their photos. This was supposed to be Ethan's showcase of leadership, but he brushed off criticism. Modern marketing thrives on drama, he declared. Once we grab attention, sales will follow. The Carters stared in disbelief. Caleb and I watched from the sidelines, amused. Ethan didn't grasp that his buzz was just spectacle, fleeting and meaningless. The board erupted in fury. Profit was their religion, and Ethan's negligence had crossed a line. For the first time, Patriarch Carter publicly expressed disappointment, demoting Ethan and handing his projects to Caleb. Panic finally set in for Ethan, but his shallow flatterers offered no real support. I clinked my wine glass with Caleb's. Congratulations on your first victory. The red wine glowed elegantly under the lights, just the beginning. Next step, unraveling Sophia's true motives. He'd always believed her love was pure. How poetic it would be for his soulmate to be his downfall. In his past life, my loyalty had shielded their affair. Now, with only true love to cling to, how would he survive the truth? Caleb's calm efficiency made him look like a genius next to Ethan's chaos. Though demoted, Sophia stayed. Her real target was Derek Carter, Ethan's cousin. She tried seducing Caleb at a gala, but stumbled into Ethan's room instead, drunk and mistaking him for Mr. Reed. How did I know? Caleb smiled faintly over breakfast. Let's just say we facilitated their reunion. The room had also held Ethan's overworked male assistant, bribed with promises of promotion. What followed was a screaming match. Ethan called Sophia a scheming whore, she called him a useless heir. In a rage, Sophia confessed she'd only used him to destabilize the Carters. Ethan beat her badly in his drunken fury. The next day, Ethan groveled to Patriarch Carter, exposing Derek's plot and pathetically begging to reinstate our engagement. Did he think marriage vows were Lego blocks? That the world revolved around his whims? As the eldest grandson, he'd grown up believing he was born to rule. Everyone was stunned by his audacity. Luckily I wasn't there. Or I might have slapped him. Did he really say that in front of you? I asked Caleb, incredulous. My fiancé smiled darkly, a rare flash of venom. Someone was about to regret their arrogance. After the hotel debacle, both Ethan and Derek were reprimanded, with Caleb unchallenged. The Carters' future leadership was all but decided. But Ethan wouldn't concede. He cornered me, babbling about childhood bonds and how Caleb hated the Carters. I responded with a bored "oh." Undeterred, he pressed, "Chloe, I was manipulated. Sophia ruined us. We're meant to be together, same background, same future." His words were a bitter echo of my past delusions. Now, coming from the man who destroyed my family, they were laughable. I snorted. Ethan was mid-pleading when Caleb emerged from my bedroom in pajamas, hair tousled. Ethan's face contorted, shock, rage, betrayal. "You disgust me," he spat. Caleb ignored him, collapsing onto the couch with a yawn. Still living in the 1950s. "Cousin," he drawled. Funny, coming from the man who cheated on his fiancée. Leaning into Ethan's fury, he added sweetly, "Don't forget, Chloe and I are engaged. Wedding plans are underway. Oh. And congratulations, Sophia's been visiting the hospital a lot lately. Could be good news for you. Ethan sputtered. Speechless. After he stormed out, I eyed Caleb's unusual chatter. Someone's chatty today. Rough night? He smirked. Ethan's an idiot. If I didn't spell it out, he'd keep whining for weeks. Curling into his side, I asked, "Why do you hate him so much?" His arms tightened. "My mother eloped because your precious uncle and aunt sabotaged her. They feared her popularity would threaten their power. So they drove her away. She gave birth to me prematurely from the stress." He kissed my hair. "Blame them for your husband's delicate health. No wonder Patriarch Carter bypassed his sons to train grandchildren." History was repeating itself, but this time, the Carters would have a Reed at the helm. Reeling from the confrontation, Ethan turned to alcohol. Not that I cared, Caleb and I were swamped with work and dating rituals. "Where to eat tonight?" I asked as we left the office. Our conversations had devolved into delightful mundanity. Before Caleb could answer, a speeding van careened toward us on the highway. My last memory was his arm shielding my head. I woke in a hospital unharmed. Caleb was worse off, concussion, fractured left arm, all from taking the brunt of the impact. The drunk driver confessed quickly, but I'd seen the van target my side of the car. Under interrogation, he implicated Sophia. I'd suspected Ethan, given his past cruelty, but these two were a matched set of cowards. Sophia was indeed pregnant. After the hotel incident, Derek had discarded her, but she clung to the pregnancy as her last leverage. When Caleb tipped off Ethan, he'd forced her into an abortion. Desperate and vengeful, she'd aimed for me, collateral damage in her crumbling life. "See?" I teased Caleb, eyeing his sling. "Meddling in family drama gets you hurt. Let her have the baby, and none of this happens." He smiled faintly. "Accidents happen. All that matters is you're safe. You're already fragile, now you're extra crunchy." When Sophia's plot unraveled, she tried to kill Ethan in a murder-suicide. He survived as a paraplegic. She broke her leg. I avoided visiting. But Mrs. Carter begged me to see him. One look in Ethan's eyes told me he'd been reborn too. "Sorry it took me so long to see Sophia's betrayal," he rasped. "After you died, she and Derek stole the company, but even they couldn't handle the Carters. Caleb won in the end." He laughed wildly. "You think you chose Caleb? He's always 10 steps ahead. You'll never outplay him." Leaving the hospital, I hesitated to answer Caleb's call. Was Ethan trying to sow doubt? "Look left," his voice said. There he was, parked at the curb, hazard lights blinking. Before, I'd have called it intuition. Now, Ethan's words niggled. Did Caleb know me too well? "You okay?" He noticed my silence as the light turned red. "Focus on driving." I glanced at his newly healed hand. "Why do you love me?" He sighed. "Haven't I shown it enough?" I stared at him until the light green. He smiled. "I'll spend a lifetime answering that." Wait, was he implying? No. Surely not. Reincarnation was too fantastical, even for us. He kept his secrets, I let it go. Our past lives held enough pain. After taking over Carter Enterprises, Caleb worked tirelessly, then became a dedicated stay-at-home dad. Contrary to rumors, he didn't hoard power. Every Carter heir found their place. The elders approved, even when he gifted me his shares before marriage. After so much strife, peace mattered more. Years later, I eyed my reflection in the mirror. No more kids. I mean it. I'm not a damn farm animal. Caleb laughed. Bouncing our baby daughter. Agreed. One princess is enough. Our sons peered over his shoulder, whining to hold their sister. Be gentle, I warned, grabbing my briefcase. No fighting while I'm gone. Stepping into the morning sun, I smiled. This was our happily ever after, flawed, fragile, but fiercely ours.